If you believe you already know the rules of air travel, I want you to pause and listen carefully. Effective January 2026, the rules that decide whether you can board a plane, clear security, or even continue a trip you've planned for months are changing quietly but aggressively. And many senior travelers over 60 are the most exposed. Welcome to U.S. Policy Updates, your trusted source for the latest news on U.S. immigration, visas, green cards, and citizenship. I am your host, Daniel Brooks. For months, there have been rumors floating around. You may have heard about passport and ID enforcement tightening, new digital travel authorizations, airline policy changes, and confusion around deadlines that keep moving. Until now, much of this felt optional or loosely enforced. That grace period is ending. The government agencies and airlines involved have now finalized their timelines, and several of the most critical rules begin rolling out in January 2026. Here is the reality many travelers are not prepared for. If you arrive at the airport early this year using the same documents, habits, and assumptions you relied on in 2024 or 2025, you could face unexpected fees, long delays, or even outright denial at the gate. In some cases, travelers will be charged simply to pass through security. In others, boarding passes will not be issued at all if a digital requirement was missed days earlier. These are not warnings anymore. These are system-level blocks built directly into airline and government databases. Today, I'm going to walk you through the most important travel changes taking effect in early 2026, with a special focus on seniors and longtime travelers who are most likely to be caught off guard. We'll cover new ID enforcement inside U.S. airports, stricter international entry rules, airline policy shifts, and several hidden traps that don't look serious until they cost you a trip. This is not about fear. It's about preparation. I've reviewed official government announcements, airline policy updates, and international travel regulations to bring you a clear picture of what is changing and when. My goal is simple: to make sure you don't lose money, miss a flight, or get denied travel because of a rule no one clearly explained to you. Let's start with the most controversial change happening right here in U.S. airports. For years, travelers have heard about the Real ID requirement, that small star on a driver's license that signals federal compliance. The official deadline passed in 2025, but in reality, enforcement remained soft. TSA officers often allowed travelers without a Real ID to move forward after a manual identity check, usually with nothing more than a warning. That leniency is ending, and it ends decisively in early 2026. Starting February 1st, 2026, TSA will no longer treat non-compliant ID as a simple inconvenience. If you arrive at airport security without a Real ID, compliant license, or a valid U.S. passport, you will be charged what the agency calls a Confirm ID fee. The cost is $45. It must be paid on the spot, and it is non-refundable. The reasoning is straightforward from the government's perspective. Manual identity verification takes extra time and resources, and that cost is now being shifted directly onto travelers. Here is where many seniors, especially seasonal travelers, are most at risk. That $45 fee does not permanently solve the problem. It only covers a limited verification window of 10 days. Imagine flying from New York to Florida in early February without a passport. You pay the fee, complete your trip, and stay for 2 weeks. When it's time to fly home, that 10-day window has expired. You pay another $45 just to get through security again. A round trip can suddenly cost an extra $90, simply because of the ID you used. Relying on this fee is not just expensive, it is also time-consuming. Travelers paying it are routed into a separate process that can add 20 to 30 minutes at the checkpoint, sometimes longer during peak travel hours. The safest and simplest solution is not to gamble with this system at all. If you do not yet have a Real ID, carry your U.S. passport or passport card when you fly domestically. A valid passport fully exempts you from the fee and avoids the delay altogether. This change marks a clear message from TSA. The era of flexibility is over. Moving forward, your ability to travel smoothly depends less on explanations and more on having the correct document in hand. And this is only the first of several enforcement shifts coming in 2026. If your travel plans include Europe or the United Kingdom in 2026, the entry process, you remember, is changing in important ways. Many of these systems technically exist already, but enforcement is becoming strict, automated, and unforgiving. Starting early next year, airlines will no longer rely on human judgment at the gate. Computer systems will decide whether you are allowed to board. For travelers heading to England, Scotland, or Wales, the United Kingdom's Electronic Travel Authorization, commonly called the ETA, is no longer optional in practice. Although the system launched earlier, airlines were flexible during the initial phase. That grace period ends on February 25, 2026. From that date forward, if you do not have an approved ETA digitally linked to your passport before you arrive at the airport, the airline will not be able to issue a boarding pass. This applies even if the UK is only a layover on your journey. No authorization means no boarding, regardless of how short the stop may be. The ETA is not something you obtain at the airport. It must be completed in advance using the official UK ETA app on a smartphone, and approval can take time. There is a small fee involved, and missing this step has already caused travelers to be turned away despite having valid passports and tickets. The key mistake many people make is assuming enforcement will be flexible. In 2026, it will not be. Traveling within continental Europe is also changing. The European Union's entry-exit system is moving toward full implementation by April 2026. Traditional passport stamps are being phased out and replaced with biometric processing. Upon arrival, travelers will be directed to kiosks where facial scans and fingerprints are collected. For older travelers, these kiosks can be challenging. The systems are precise, and the process must be completed correctly. There is no longer room for small overstay errors. The system automatically tracks the length of your stay, and even a single day over the limit can trigger future travel restrictions. There has been confusion around the European travel authorization system that will follow later. You do not need that authorization in January 2026, despite what some websites claim. It is expected to launch later in the year. When it does, seniors over the age of 70 will be exempt from the application fee, though the form will still be required. Any site charging older travelers a fee before official rollout should be treated with caution. These changes signal a broader shift in international travel. Entry decisions are no longer made at the counter. They are made in advance by databases and by automated systems that do not make exceptions. Airlines are also making major changes in 2026, and one of the biggest shifts affects a carrier many travelers have relied on for decades. Beginning January 27, 2026, Southwest Airlines will officially end its open seating policy. For the first time in its history, passengers will be assigned seats. This means the familiar routine of checking in exactly 24 hours early to secure a better spot will disappear. Instead, seat selection will happen at the time of booking, similar to other major airlines. While this may sound more convenient, there is an important trade-off. Southwest is introducing new premium seating zones. Front row seats and exit rows with extra legroom will come at an added cost. For older travelers who prefer sitting near the front to reduce walking or exit the plane more easily, this change may mean paying extra for comfort that was once free. Another significant change affects passengers who require additional seating space. Under the new assigned seating system, the long-standing policy that allowed a refund for an extra seat is being revised. Starting in 2026, refunds for that additional seat are no longer guaranteed. If a flight is completely full and 2 seats are occupied, the second seat may not be refunded. This shifts the financial risk to the traveler, making advance planning essential. There is also an earlier rule taking effect on January 11, 2026, that impacts anyone traveling with a mobility scooter or powered device. To comply with updated fire safety regulations, Southwest is enforcing strict limits on lithium-ion batteries. Any battery exceeding 300 watt-hours will not be allowed on board. Many heavy-duty or long-range mobility devices exceed this limit. Travelers should check battery specifications now and, if needed, contact manufacturers about travel-approved alternatives well before arriving at the airport. These airline changes reflect a broader trend across the industry. Simplicity is being replaced with structured pricing, stricter rules, and less flexibility at the gate. For travelers who plan ahead, the system can still work smoothly. For those relying on old habits, 2026 could bring expensive surprises. Not every change coming in 2026 makes travel harder. In fact, some of the most important updates finally give travelers stronger protections, especially when things go wrong. Under rules that become fully enforceable in 2026, airlines must now issue automatic cash refunds when flights are significantly delayed or changed and a passenger chooses not to travel. For domestic flights, a delay of 3 hours or more qualifies. For international flights, that threshold is 6 hours. When that limit is reached, you no longer have to accept vouchers or credits. You can request a refund, and the airline is required to return the money to your original form of payment within 7 days. There is also an important provision for travelers with disabilities or mobility needs. If an airline swaps aircraft and the new plane no longer meets your accessibility requirements, such as lacking an accessible restroom, that change alone can qualify you for a refund, even if the flight is technically on time. This rule restores dignity and choice to travelers who were previously forced to accept unsuitable conditions. Passport processing is also evolving. In 2026, the State Department plans to expand its online passport renewal system. Eligible travelers will be able to renew using a digital photo, online forms, and electronic payment without visiting a post office. This option applies only to standard renewals. First-time applicants or passports expired for extended periods will still require in-person processing. It is also critical to remember the 6-month validity rule. Many countries will deny entry if your passport expires within 6 months of your travel date, regardless of your return ticket. If this breakdown helped you understand what's coming and how to prepare, make sure you subscribe to U.S. policy updates to stay connected for future updates. Finally, there are smaller operational changes that are easy to overlook but can cause real trouble. Security screening technology is improving, and certain packing tricks that once slipped through now trigger extra scrutiny. Items like overstuffed neck pillows are being pulled aside more frequently, slowing travelers down and creating unnecessary stress. Medical items such as cooling packs for medication are still allowed, but travelers must clearly declare them and advocate for themselves at the checkpoint. Travel in 2026 is not about luck or persuasion. It is about preparation and compliance. Check your identification, review your airline policies, confirm battery limits, and understand your refund rights before you leave home. The rules are stricter, but they are also clearer. With the right information, you can continue to travel confidently without being denied at the gate.